يفقه قولي. Today, inshallah, it's our seventh class. Today, we are going to talk about the linguistic content features of the political and media text. Before we get into the description of the content and the features of the political and media text, I just want to draw your attention to the point that in different contexts and in different situations, we have a kind of converging relationship between the media text and political text. So we can say that whenever we say political text, typically it has the same and identical reference with the so-called media text. Does that mean that whenever we have media text, this means that it is political? Of course, the quick answer is no. As maybe we can say that a media text can contain news about agriculture, about social life, about education, about all these types of things. But typically, media texts are looked at from the scope of a political perspective. Typically, when we go into the kind of analysis of the text of political media and media genre or discourse, typically we can look into different features. First of all, when we talk about political text, it is typically when we look at them as a kind of text that aim at sending, receiving information to the sender and receiver. So here, when we talk about media text, typically we talk about receiving information and entertainment, articles, advertisements published in newspapers or broadcasts on radio, TV, websites, podcasts, and so on and so forth, blogs, yeah, and so on and so forth. This depends entirely on the addressee and their main function to express the message and in effective way. So here, if you remember when we talked about the context and its components, we talked about the addressee or the audience, we talked about the translator, we talked about the source language or target language. We talked about all these things in a kind of triangular relationship and how they can shape and reshape how we address our audience in the sense that our message is clear and sufficient, let's say sufficient. So here, okay. Another thing, dear students, is when we here we look at the layout and mode of presentation that are important. For example, when we talk about the newspapers, مثلا, they focus on the display of headlines. So here, when we talk about the political body that a newspaper contains or lays out or displays, actually, we find it can display headlines, banners, and it deals with all these things as a kind of vehicles to express the message. So font size, organization, prominence, and other typographical features. Now, when we look into the texts of the political as well as media text in general, in terms of their characteristics, linguistic characteristics, first of all, we find there is a kind of careful structuring for all types of text. We have arguments. In terms of it is a strong argument in the sense that there is a kind of evidence-based argument in the sense that also we have a kind of argument that is clearly and logically developed to convey the message properly in its own time, place, audience, content situation. And also we have a coherent flow of information. We have a kind of analysis and synthesis. So the political structure deals with a kind of synthetic flow of information, in the sense that we have a kind of well ordered hierarchy of information, beginning with the old, then with the new, and this new becomes old, and followed by new, and so on and so forth. This is, of course, depending upon, or this depends upon, the so-called logical connectors, sorry, cohesive and cohesive devices. Also, for the sake of attracting the attention of the speakers, often listeners or readers, we have different openings and emphasis patterns or levels. Whether these can be emojis, they can be headlines, they can be bold, larger fonts, and so on and so forth. And also, we have a kind of standard language. Does does this mean that all the way down we have standard language? The answer is yes. When we talk about translation and dealing with translated text from one language into another, mostly we deal with a kind of a certain level of language, which is the standard language, because it is a kind of output. But when we look into a kind of informal media, maybe sometimes they use a kind of dialectal levels in order to capture the attention of the readers. And also, the texts are equipped with the sufficient tools towards the production of news and information in a very limited time frame. Because when I want to, let's say, put a piece of news, I have to make sure that they are setting limits in terms of time and uh, uh, space or place. Okay, a simple style with very short sentences. When I mean a very short sentences, we do not refer to sentences that are similar to the child sentences or to the children's sentences. But the child sentence is looked at as short from the perspective of language acquisition tools and strategies. فبالتالي, here we talk about short sentences. We do not mean that they are very simple in the sense that we have subject-verb agreement and subject-verb structure. No, but here we talk about short sentences. Maybe they may be complex, they may be compound sentences, they may be simple sentences, but the idea is that we need short sentences in order to minimize the load that is upon the reader for the processing of information. So here we should pay attention to this style. At the paragraph level and sentence level, sentence paragraphs and paragraphs are short, as we said, and economical. Also, when we talk about short and economical patterns, we mean that there is no redundant text, in the sense that we have this type of redundancy that we should avoid in our uh, texts. So here, okay, okay, I want to make sure. Mhm. So here on the grammatical level, at the grammatical level, dear students, we have a use. أولا, we have the use of active rather than passive. Again, does this apply all the way down? No, sometimes we have to capture the attention of the readers, sometimes for the sake of suspension. Sometimes really we do not know who did that or who does that. So active is used, but sometimes it is the passive is used and the preferred, and the presence of adjectives is limited, of course. There are no grammatical constraints. So, for example, we have a state population to double by 2040, babies to blame, instead of more grammatical sentence such as the state population is expected to double by 2040 or 2040, and babies are the ones to blame here. So here we try to minimize the grammatical features for the sake, it is the ultimate reason is for the sake of minimizing the load of the processing, sorry, the processing load, okay? So here, also we have a kind of omit functional words. When we talk about functional words, dear students, the opposite of content words, and these function words in terms of they refer to articles, definite articles, indefinite articles, prepositions, and so on and so forth. So we focus upon the lexis or the content, so which we call it a kind of lexical density in terms of we play with the word forms themselves in order to get rid of functional words and functional tools. So according to المهم Reach 2002, a headline has a range of functions that specifically dictate its shape, content, structure, and they operate within the range of restrictions that limit the freedom of the writer. Headline writers use a wide range of devices to create a very specific style, which is sometimes called a headline. A headline, their students can bear emojis, it should be larger than the text itself. It can express the identity of the author or the reader, and it is actually the challenge facing or encountering the translator to maintain the power of the headlines when we translate it from one language to source language into another language. So here, than other types in Arabic, for example, media sentences are less, as we said, complex. I mean here, again, complex would not mean complex here, complex versus compound sentences. No, here we are less complex. We mean that they are very well organized in the sense that they can be easily processed with the main function of conveying information away from creative stylistic aspects of the text and literary, I mean, styles. So here we have to get rid of redundancy. We have get rid to unnecessary expressions, function words, as much as possible, depending upon the position of the sentence or the part that we are dealing with. We have minimal rhetorical aspects or aesthetic cohesive features with more emphasis on language. It's to convey the meaning. Sentences and paragraphs are often connected by conjunctive device method in Arabic and we use and use of emotive no use of emotive languages. Hone dear students here, when we talk about these actually features, the main or the major challenge is how the translator would deal and would interact with these texts in the sense that he or she has to come up with well organized, well connected output, I mean, translated text. Another thing, dear students, who categories of political and media text in terms of theme and structure. Theme and topic, and structure is the framework, structural framework. We have hard news, feature articles. We have a special topic news, and we have headlines. So when we talk about hard news, we talk about the news that we deal with our daily life. We have feature articles, the articles that have, we call them columnists, column writers, a special topic in news when we talk about a certain event, and we want to actually focus upon this type of event using certain discourse in the news. And finally, when we talk about the most important thing, which is called the headlines, because the headlines are the identity for all these news In terms, I just want to add a word to special topic in news. When we talk about special topic in news, we talk about news that are related to certain domains, analyzing certain aspects of social life in terms of elections, in terms of for official visits. And our job here is to cover as much as possible of these types of news. Our job is very challenging, عفوا. We need to maintain the message. We need to make sure that the elements of the discourse itself are not lost. Some of the texts are written by very quickly, which is like interview, for example. Different kinds of media depend على البيربوس. مثل magazine covers the with less text and no advertising, depending upon the content itself. Newspapers have different sections for sports, entertainment, TV, medical, scientific, and all these types of things. As a researcher, عفوا, as a translator, my job is to make sure that I know what exactly the text is about, how it is organized, who wrote this work or this text, to whom it is meant. What is the style of this text, and how it is designed. At the translation level, dear students, the political and media text require more interpreting than written translation. So interpreting is more complicated. As you know, dear students, in spontaneous interpreting or spontaneous translation or interpreting, as you know, is very much challenging in the sense that we need to uh, make sure that we do not damage the content, as what happened with King Abdullah Trump meeting in Washington. And due to this type of interpreting, there was a kind of misconception in terms of the topic that they were talking about. But with the written type of text for translation, it is much easier and requires less load, with a minimum amount of with mental processes, because I have sufficient time and I can resort to the dictionary with a huge amount of reading and reading again and reading again, so that the translation becomes good and feasible. Written political and media texts are more easily translated than other complex genre because of different reasons. Maybe one of them is the high frequency that we have such news like this. All people every day hear about the same event, the same news, but maybe other types like medicine, engineering, biology, and so on and so forth. They have a kind of special language, genre language, jargon, let's say, and we need actually to minimize this type of load in order to be able to translate these types of texts. Uh, Political and media, because due to the fact that they can be easily translated, they can be good candidates for the machine translation. And with the AI, now with the artificial intelligence, maybe now all types of text are or can be easily translated. But maybe if we make a kind of statistics for the number of the political words compared to the non-political words, we find that political words or politics-based words have very high frequency, and they have higher rate of frequency than others. This is maybe due to the fact that the political events are much more, and we live by all of them every day. And maybe because politicians come from different specializations, but doctors or biologists or engineers, they should be within the same domain of knowledge. والله يعطيكم ألف عافية، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.